Welcome to our Jump Point podcast.
Hello.
We decided to come back to Toronto because this is where it started for us.
Oh yes, we workshops, Toronto 2019. What's your capacity for success? You gotta transform your identity, take courageous action, and follow your heart. Hold up, Tim, I have this idea. I think we need to go back further in time. Do you trust me?
I do.
Grab your coffee or tea and join us as we share stories, map visions, and explore what it means to be during this great jump point across generations, gender, perspectives, and paradigms. Welcome to the Jump Point podcast, episode number 2.
Episode number 2.
We realized not everyone was aware that there is video associated with this podcast.
It's a good point.
And we're going to talk about why that's important as we move forward later on. And we're also now we've never done a podcast before. Do we want to look at each other?
Go like this?
You know, Joe Rogan looks at his guests. They're not looking at the camera. Or do we want to look at the camera?
Do we reinvent the notion of podcast and call it Cast Pod?
Cast Pod.
It's a Cast Pod.
We know we want to have video because we're so much about video. So video is going to be there, but are we just going to have it there? And we don't know. All to say, welcome to this podcast, and we're making this up as we go along, right?
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. So we're going to play with looking at each other more, I think.
Okay.
And
which we don't ever do.
We don't ever do when the camera's on, but we do often.
Do we often look at each other?
I think so, when we're just talking.
Okay, you're right. I think you're right. And so there's no one snooping over our shoulder typically.
No, there's not. But there's a camera here, so I think we've exhausted this. We're making it up as we go along. Is this how we really want to start this podcast? It's already started. Here we go. What are we going to talk about today, Tim? Well, let me tell you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There's a way of really kind of going, yeah.
Yeah, so
down.
Let's be clear here that Tim is not the tech person or the whole marketing person.
Yeah, look at him. He doesn't look like a tech.
What he prefers is I just turn the camera on.
Not knowing nothing about nothing.
I turn the camera on, I set a brief context, and then he just talks.
So why do you think I can explain why I've come to understand that?
Yeah.
So having been on the planet a little longer than you, marketing, as I understood it, was you get clear on what your purpose and your vision and all those types of things. Then you get a language around it, and then you start to actually, everything you're talking about is streaming through that filter. And that's planning. And the planning is a sequential plan. You start first talk this, that, this, and the next thing. And that's all head-based. And I'm realizing, one, it didn't work very well because I'm wired for the year 2027 and forward. That's what I'm naturally wired for. That would have helped to understand that
Which we talked about on
ago.
episode 1 for anyone who hasn't watched that episode.
Yeah.
We spoke about the human design sort of prophecy and explanation of the big paradigm shift that we're in, which we're going to dive into that more and how that's related to the jump point. And not to say that podcast is marketing. It's not marketing, but
it's a format.
It's a format, and we've been putting ourselves out in the market through various means, like the Flow show. That's how we started.
Yep.
Which was a live Facebook show. And this is kind of the same thing. We'd show up and have a word sort of as a theme, and then we just riff off of that word. And all to say, we very much, Flow Network is our company, and we're all about flow and this new orientation to business and life that is based in the now, in the now moment.
A spontaneous moment.
So
to finish my thought was, and thank you for giving me the bridge to finish that on, is that what I've come to understand is being spontaneous and responding to the environment in the moment, in the now moment, 24/7, always in and from the now moment, is where this world is going. It is right now. We're over 2.5 years away from that being the new norm. It's so totally and absolutely different from the world that I grew up in, but I fit in this new world. I didn't really know that. Well, I did know that. I didn't really fit in the other world. So I'm hoping to fit in this one, and that actually works out well, because apparently I do.
Yes, all to say you do well with not having to plan far into the future, as do I.
Yeah.
And we have great strengths that complement each other's weaknesses in terms of putting out our our service, our mission, our passion in the world, which is talking about this jump point in evolution, the new mechanics of being. We've had so many different words we've been playing around with over the 5 years that we've been together. And I thought that it would be a good episode to just dive into a little bit more about our coming together and the uniqueness of our relationship. And as we're going to share in the coming episodes, we're going to share how we found the new place that we're moving to, which we touched in episode 1. We actually documented all of that, and that's going to be episode 3, 4, 5, 6, however many we have, quite a few actually, of how this, the trailer of this podcast shows us jumping into Rome, Italy, and then back here in Ontario. And that was, as we described in episode 1, like a pilgrimage to being pulled to find a new foundation for Flow Network on the water in a float home, and the miraculous sort of unfoldment of that story. And we're going to talk about that being one of our big jump points, but more about like what a jump point is. And we had the good analogy of the stargate that I think is fun to talk about.
So Stargate was a program that I really took to. So the idea with Stargate, if you haven't seen the Stargate was this space that you actually, it was, there was this
into a new world.
You would jump through this, and you would actually portal out to various places in the universe.
So much so that when I first met you in your backyard, you had this like metal round thing in the forest.
In the forest.
And you're like, that's our Stargate.
Yeah, it's just like out there.
It's so funny because I had a Stargate in my backyard as well before I met you in my garden. Yeah, there was this like, the way the trees were growing, it looked like this circular thing. And so I called it my Stargate as well. So when I met you and you were like, oh yeah, we have a Stargate out in our backyard, I was like, okay, these are my people.
Which I don't see and hear very often. These are my people. Yeah, I love that.
Previous to that, yes.
Yeah, previous to that. And
yeah, there's like kind of hide the fact that you wouldn't tell people.
Yeah, it was in the forest. You could see it if in fact you wanted to see it, but it wasn't something people would drop by and go, hey, there's our Stargate. Because the people that I was working with at the time and the community would not really understand, Stargate. And now I understand why, because that was something that is now more engaging with the new realities.
Right. So the new reality is, what do you mean? It's just a Stargate. So for me, the thing that I love about Stargate, and we actually watched that movie right before we went to Italy.
Yes.
And then right before we went to Italy as well, we were in this, I follow the gene keys. So the sun transit was wormholes and miracles. That was
cool. Great metaphor for Stargate.
Exactly. So I spoke about that in that gene key contemplation video that I have on my YouTube channel. And that really is what it felt like we did when we went to Italy.
Totally.
And
especially when we came back. Yes. And we came to Vancouver, and how we navigated.
Yes.
And basically got pulled.
Right.
To our new home.
Because you lock in. So for me, a Stargate, you lock in coordinates to where it is you want to jump to. Like, what's your timeline jump? And we're proposing that this jump point is a jump point to your best timeline. Like your best life timeline.
Yeah.
And the coordinates that you put in are not that you know exactly where you're going and that you know exactly
well put,
what it looks like, but your coordinates are the frequency and vibration that you want to feel.
Yeah.
So I want to feel content. I want to feel really tapped into my creativity.
So high vibration.
I want to feel joy. I want to feel clear, like all of those kinds of feelings.
Yeah.
So you put that into the coordinates of your Stargate, and then you allow yourself to be pulled through that Stargate and literally make that jump to that new location, whatever it is. Like, as we spoke about in episode 1, we never, ever had in our mind that we would be living on a float home. And
no. Well, I had to go back further, is never had in my mind, there's never a thought of mine that says, let me actually look to invest in an RV.
Right.
And go across Canada with Sarah.
Yeah.
And then naturally, as a function of doing that and engaging in that, start to find my way in this new orientation to life.
Yeah, it was a good vehicle.
Yeah, it was a very good vehicle.
For being able to let go of this area and let go of all the stories and all of the people, things, roles.
Yeah. So why do you believe, or what can we talk about, why is the word jump point so relevant to this new way of what we believe is a new way of navigation?
Yes, the jump point. So we have this
Look, I've turned into the person asking the questions.
I know, look at you. Maybe because we're looking at each other and not the camera
Exactly.
anymore. See, we're trying to change up the vibe here.
I like that.
And I do want to circle back to the RV and just how that all came to be in this episode, and how we came to be to live together and all of that. But to answer your question about the jump point, the first thing I see is the model that you created and that I've been working on as well since I met you, the 5-level model, the 5 levels of flow. And at between level 3 and 4, you had this wall. It was called the wall of complexity.
It was black and it was wall. It was linear, black, thick line.
That was an indicator of like, okay, between level 3 and 4, it's this wall of complexity where the whole game changes.
Yeah.
And I changed that to, that's the jump point in evolution.
Yeah.
The jump point in evolution from level, what we use in our linear model, which is not linear, but it's helpful to just sort of orient yourself and understand where you are in this whole evolution on your journey.
Yep. Your navigation of your life.
Yes. So the jump point in evolution, or that wall of complexity, speaks to the need to have a huge paradigm shift in your
to get from level 3 to level 4.
Yeah,
and then 5.
In our way of being and our way of thinking, which has to do with what you mentioned before, living in the now and being present,
spontaneous,
and being able to flow in the moment. And there's all sorts of other things that are associated with that. But it really is the jump point from living your life from out to in to out. What does that mean?
Yeah.
It's understanding that you are the co-creator of your reality and you create it from within you, which means that you have the power inside of you. And at level 1, 2, 3, we're so used to thinking that we have to, or not that we have to, but we just give our power away.
Well, it's how we were educated.
Exactly.
Like literally, it was how we were educated from, 5 years old, and now it's even younger, like 3-year-olds old.
Power away to authorities,
to a top-down infrastructure, to fitting into in somewhere on that pyramid.
Yes.
To be able to go and have this great life and fit into society and contribute and have power and all those types of things.
Yes.
And that is the journey from level 1, 2, and 3, because that's how we all understood it. And the thing with level 4, 5, we got garbage being picked up.
Oh,
good jobs, dogs. And having developed that model and similar models a long time ago and using it in business, it was one of those things that allowed people to visually look at, well, where are you? Where do you believe you are? Level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
Right. It's extremely helpful to orient yourself, to have something visual outside of you to sort of help you explain your reality, to make that jump, because it is extremely disorienting. Your whole world basically turns upside down, and that wall of complexity is like, it is complex, but it's also simple, but it's, it's so many things. And why is that relevant right now? Because, to speak about this, the death of planning, and this
which is all about 1, 2, 3. It was always about level 1, 2, 3 was all about planning.
And I think you could stay in level 1, 2, 3 very comfortably during that period of time, which is, post-COVID becoming less and less and less the case as we move into this new timeline, this new energy that is more about in the now moment, and the planning and the ways that we used to work, like live in this world is just not going to work anymore. So more and more people are going to need to make this jump to really understanding their inner world and the inner mechanics and how to be present in the moment, and all of the
new skills that we wouldn't have learned at school. All the things that we learned in school, planning, identify if you're a business type person, where are you going to go? What are you going to accomplish? How are you going to start that business? And you start planning and you start to make your way up the hill, because it's a top-down hill.
And you could even plan like 5-10 years into the future.
Heck yeah, and you could actually count on
that
being
happening.
able to
Yes.
keep that plan in place.
Yeah.
And that actually worked really well for level 1, 2, 3 for, I guess, 400 years.
It's worth saying too for anybody who wants to see this model, because
yes,
we're not showing it on the video right this second. We're just speaking to it, but it's going to be available on flownetwork.ca. That's FLOWNETWORK network.ca, and we'll put it in the links and whatever. It's going to be a free video that we're creating that if you find it helpful and want to follow along with us, because this won't be the last time we speak about the levels.
Yeah, the thing that's so powerful back then, it was so powerful because it gave people a map. Yes. It was like literally a map. Where are you? Yes. On that map, and it created a bunch of different maps. And I was testing them during that time frame because I was so outside the box and didn't know it, or didn't understand it.
You were testing them with clients.
With clients, so we were co-creating. They said, it would be helpful if that actually talked about this, or you put this there, or that helps me understand what you're trying to accomplish. Right. So this is something that was created over 25 years, co-created with clients over that period of time. And it is now very helpful to understand up to level 3, you can plan. And that was the way I had seen it back then. Level 4 and 5, you didn't have a plan. It was spontaneous and you're allowing yourself to be pulled. Well, imagine my surprise when I found out through Gene Keys and your deep understanding, and I really do feel like you've got a deep understanding of the Gene Keys, human design, and astrology, even though it's not your area of expertise entirely. But you had an understanding that we are moving into a whole other way of having, doing, and being. Yeah. And I called that level 4 or 5, thinking I was going to help people actually get across that big barrier at where the crisis happens. Well, the crisis actually is one of those things that may well be happening all the time, and the opportunity is to lever whatever crisis wounding you have, and it's not a bad thing. It's actually just trying to help you turn your focus and shift
to make the jump point.
To make the jump point. Yeah. And the jump point, what defines a jump point is you have to, first off, not plan, or actually, first off, not get really, really clear on where you're going. You have to let go of what you thought you knew about, when it ends up being, everything. Yeah. And surrender to being pulled. And that was something that I thought was isolated to just business, but I'm now coming to understand and appreciate, especially as you present the Gene Keys and human design. That's kind of how we're all going to navigate from 2027 forward. Yeah. So it's pretty exciting to finally be relevant.
And it's still relevant to a relatively small population, because as a lot of the people that we follow and like to listen to, but we've been saying as well since we met that there's a fork in the road in this evolution where a large percentage of the population will not be able to let go and continue pushing and forcing their way on a timeline that really is trying to die. Yes. And that will go on for who knows how long.
Yeah, possibly quite a long time, but I think it'll be less and less people are going to be having success on that, and they'll look, okay, so this isn't working anymore. You know, what options do I have? And that's the opportunity is, and always was, to be able to go and present options for everybody, because the big difference now is this level 1, 2, 3. The old way was big business. You'd actually scale business by planning and even use tech now to scale your business. In this new way, level 4 or 5, the future, it seems to me that it's going to be more inside out. It's going to be more individual, and then I'm going to use my expertise and you're going to use your expertise, and our expertise match. We're running in parallel with each other. There's a natural attraction. It's an effortless thing that's happening, that we're attracting. That type of world, we've not seen that type of world. We've not seen that type of world anywhere.
In the old world, the world that's dying, we were, through the education system, we're really conditioned to believe that we're pretty similar as
everyone's
the same. We get the same education, and it's this homogenization. And the thing that I love about human design and Gene Keys is it helps us see how unique we really are. Right. And then understand that, you know, the blanket advice that we used to get, you know, like, don't trust your gut. Well, that doesn't work for everybody because of their wiring. Or even for me, in my case, was, you know, when you're going on the spiritual path, and I've had many different spiritual mentors, or just even, you know, the blanket advice of like, you have to stop thinking. Well, turns out, as a mental projector that I am, I literally am conditioned to think constantly.
Yeah.
Like, that's my definition, is in my...
Yeah, it's going on all the time.
All
and
the time.
having lived with you now, it's like, it's going on all the time. I'm exhausted, bagged. You're reading a book, you're making a note, you're doing a podcast, you're doing, like, building something. You're just on 24/7 in what I would have termed in the past as someone who's just going, and I would have incorrectly termed it, you're pushing.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing with research in the past is business success, and they would look at success of business people and then, you know, society. It was a function of three things: hard work, smarts, because you have to actually go to school, obviously, and then you work hard, and then there's this other thing called luck. They couldn't really quite figure out why people were successful, and it ends up at level 4 or 5, or in the future, I think the term luck would probably be, you know, spontaneous. They just will not, using that old frame of reference of outside in, there is no frame of reference really yet devised that would be relevant to everybody other than luck or flow.
Yeah, I think that you could look at our situation of finding our home in Vancouver Island as, oh, you're so lucky. Even we had like our home surveyor say, oh, the angels were really on your side for you to find a place like that at a price like that at a time like this. And you know, in my reading, it's like, with luck, we create conditions for luck.
Totally.
When we're surrendered and at a you know, intentionally putting in the coordinates for our stargate.
Totally, yes. That's the jump point. Navigating jump points, consciously navigating jump points 24/7. It's happening all the time.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really foresee that it was happening 24/7, because that was just, it was enough to try and get, you know, people around the room to actually understand just even the notion of jump point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you are very much wired, like, I mean, that's why we get on so well, is you're wired to letting go. So the very first thing that happens with jump point is letting go what you thought was the way forward.
Yeah.
Which is what we did when we went to Europe.
Yeah, well, which is what we did when, well, at least what I did when we first met.
Right, when we got the RV, there's freaking funny videos of us looking at each other and going, we're going to do this. We're going to do this? Really? We're going to do this. We're going to do this.
Yes. And worth mentioning that if anyone, you know, wants to follow along our story that we've been documenting with that RV, we have the We Ship channel on YouTube. You can check it out, and we share our intimate struggles with those jump points. And maybe it's worth talking now just about like how we met and the unique conditions that sort of what?
Well, how we met, interesting, you could say, was luck.
Yes.
But I must say, so I was in a situation where my wife and my business partner, we've been in business together up to that point for about 20 years or something like that. And we were doing different aspects of the same business. And she got diagnosed with cancer, ovarian cancer, and wasn't given a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And I remember the very first discussion we had, she said she'd had a lot of experience dealing with health challenges that most people could not really function very well through. She was quite amazingly good at flow, and she was in allowing herself to a degree to flow. What she said to me, she says, I'm not particularly concerned with her journey, because she knew she was going to have no choice in it. She was going to have to surrender in some way, but she was really concerned about me and me navigating that. And I go, well, that's interesting. Me? What do you mean? She says, well, it's a good chance that it could bust you, entirely break you, or it would make you. And I remember, like it was yesterday, sitting beside her on the bed saying, well, I'm not gonna, it's not my plan to fall apart. I've been doing this now, this notion of flow for a long time. So I, at that point, said, okay, I'm gonna go out and find Sarah. Well, I didn't say find Sarah, it's true. I didn't say find Sarah. But I'm gonna find the people that I'm meant to actually navigate this new universe.
It was a jump point for you to say,
it was a big time jump
there's
point.
somebody that I need to look for.
Yeah, I need to find somebody. And so I went out and I did find people, or I'll say attracted them in different scenarios. And some of them were, you know, very short-term stints. But when I remember meeting you, which we talk about a ton, and meeting you, and it really, the way we met was, it was in a faux Vietnamese
faux soup restaurant. That was my frequent spot.
And my frequent spot.
Yeah. And we're the only people in the restaurant.
Yeah, there were, yeah.
I came in and you were there writing, like.
Yeah, it was my little place to go, because when I had business challenges or whatever, or just different places I would go and write by myself, and I was writing at that point in time.
Yeah, yeah. And before you left, you showed what you were writing, or you showed your journal, and you were just, I don't normally do this, but I just want to thank you for inspiring, you know, all of this. And I was facing you with my friend there, and I was like, just curious, like, you don't normally see somebody writing in a Vietnamese place. So I was, of course, curious, like, oh, like, come sit down. My friend and I invited you to sit down.
And I was uncomfortable with sitting down, because I remember very distinctly thinking, okay, this person, I'm very attracted to you, and you were with somebody else. And I thought, okay, I would rather just exchange business cards and then pick it up. But then you both insisted, why don't you sit down with us?
Which ended up being like an hour and a half conversation.
Yeah, that was part of the reason, because I had to bring home stuff, because I was doing takeout as well. Bring home to Sharon. Yeah. So I was an hour and a half late.
Yeah. So we did end up exchanging business cards, and you came, like, I think it was 2 days after, to your home office.
Yeah.
And on my side, I had just had a big transit in my life, sold my house, let go of a 8-year relationship, and was
letting go being the point of letting go. So that's a really good point.
Had a business really, I had burnout after growing a business really fast, and was all set on doing everything differently, and so had let go of a lot. And I was in Costa Rica, and I was thinking I might stay there for a long term. I had nothing to come back to. And
coming from Costa Rica to Canada.
Coming from Costa Rica, I came back because I was on the beach, and I heard, you have to go back for community. It was very clear.
Yeah, and that's so cool.
And I thought, why go back there for community? I can make community here in Costa Rica. But it was very clear that I had to come back, and it was that night that I met you.
Yeah, and it was also some full moon or something too.
It was the spring equinox. So I had this group that I was going to be doing a ceremony with too that night. So yeah, it was very powerful, and it's just worth mentioning too, like, what attracts people to, like, what creates what are the factors? What is that unseen magic or luck that brings people together at a specific point in time?
Yeah, and receptivity. In my case, I can say I was exceedingly receptive to anybody. I mean, it's frequency, it's energy. Yeah. And you, because we talked about it again a lot.
Yeah.
There was at one point in time where I was writing, and the reason I was writing was to try and find this solution for a client at the time. So I was by myself writing, and then I was stuck. And as soon as you two came in, all of a sudden, whoosh, I got a whole bunch of clarity. And I was just writing like crazy with clarity. And then there was a point where you and your friend got up to say hello to somebody who was just walking by the restaurant. So there was 3 of us in the restaurant, and at that point, someone walked in. So your friend walked out, and you were walking, standing. I can see it like it was yesterday. You were there waiting for him and, talking. And I thought, wow, there's something about you that I was very deeply attracted to, and I didn't know what it was. But there was something also, because there was 2 of you, I didn't know which one I was really attracted to. But my plan was, that's why I say I wasn't planning to actually sit down with you. I went to the owner and said, I want to pay for their meal.
Yeah.
And because he said, okay, because he knew who I was, and he didn't ask about it. But for me, the reason I wanted to pay for the meal is because I felt I got a big gift from you. I wasn't sure who it was, you or your friend. I got this big gift and clarity helping with the client. I thought, okay, well, I got to pay that forward. So
Yeah,
I
that's
picked
so
up
awesome.
the meal, didn't tell you,
No.
and then I'm walking out. And
Yeah,
for
we
me,
didn't.
it
Yeah.
would have, and it made kind of not, I thought, oh my gosh, if they find out when they go, and if I stay here too long, they go. And I don't want the, oh, that was so nice of you to pick up our meal. But I wanted that to be a surprise. It wouldn't be a surprise if I was still there.
Yes.
So I didn't plan on staying there for that period of time, but it ended up being a very great conversation because you told me you had a background in marketing and broadcast. And I go, oh my God, that's exactly what it is I'm looking for right now in terms of a business partner. And here's what it is I'm about.
I mean, I got the chance to hear what you were about. And like, it's funny now, I can see when I was in Costa Rica, knowing that I was coming back, I had set my Stargate intentions for, okay, when I go back, like my only focus is going to be rebuilding this business. And this time I'm clear who it is I'm looking for and who it is I'm not looking for.
Right.
And I had set really clear intentions
on. That's so crazy.
I know.
Right? Like, it's so
right?
amazing.
And then boom, it's like, okay, that's why it's come back for community. And while we did engage in business, like we had that business meeting 2 days after, and then we ended up meeting like 3 days a week since then.
Yeah.
And it's since for 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Sharon wasn't involved at the beginning.
Right, because she had clients that she was busy with, and then, but we ended up, and what I was going to say is, yes, it was very business oriented. We grew these workshops. We were doing workshops downtown Toronto and doing market research and that kind of thing, and building programs and working through your models together and coming up with shared language, and then COVID hit, and we had just finished polishing all the details of flownetwork.ca.
Yeah.
And the marketing, the writing, the copy, everything.
Done videos like crazy.
Videos like crazy and then boom, COVID lockdowns hit. The day we launched, or the day before we launched the Flow Network website.
Yeah.
And the copy was so on point for what was
what happened.
Happen,
yeah,
what
COVID.
Was happening and what was about to happen. And yet we weren't in a position in our life to really be leaders in the time during that, because Sharon's health condition was
went downhill like quickly.
Quite quickly. And then
required me to be more focused on helping Sharon through that. And then you ended up being party to that and helping Sharon as well, and we became
community. Yes. And the focus was less on building the outward business, but more on building the inner
dynamic,
strong dynamic foundation of what we're proposing really with this, what the future is. And Sharon was so much a part of that, and we got super tight because during lockdown I ended up having a personal crisis as well, and then broke my ankle in lockdown. So that, and Sharon
so we got so I'm in bed sleeping, Sharon and I are sleeping, and our days were quite intense because she was not feeling well. And every week at least we'd go to the hospital or something. So it was intense, and getting a phone call around 11:30 at night was equally intense. I thought, and what the hell, who was that?
Yeah, I called them
you were in Toronto.
I was
in
shock.
You
were in Waterdown.
And you were definitely in shock because you weren't making much sense.
No.
And then I remember Sharon says, just go get her and then bring her to the hospital. And that's what I did. I just, okay, I'll be there. Got in a car, drove an hour to actually get you and trying to go up. And here you are.
I was concerned because of being in Toronto and COVID that the hospitals would be busy, and I didn't know what to expect. And
you were by yourself.
And I was by myself. So I was so glad that you suggested that you come, and I didn't call an ambulance and go into the city, because you ended up taking me to the Burlington Hospital.
Drove you out of the city and over to Burlington Hospital by us.
Which was empty. Yeah. And I got in right away, and
that in itself was funny. It's like, I mean, again, it was a crisis, but you got drugged up, and that was pretty damn funny watching you start singing
into the unknown. Because the crazy thing is that next day, you and Sharon were set to come over to the Toronto studio, to my place, to shoot
Start
our first
filming, yeah.
digital product, which was called The Hero's Journey.
Right.
And we had
Joseph
done
Campbell's work.
Yeah, we were gonna create this whole like cool series, which we did end up doing, but later on. But I had to go on a deeper hero's journey myself through breaking my ankle, and then moving in with you guys. And for me, that was such a, like, I was typically a very independent, didn't know really how to ask for help or really receive.
Well, you define, like we've said since then,
Yes.
you've defined yourself as not needing.
Yeah.
Sure as hell don't need the help of a man.
Yeah.
Which is, totally legitimate.
Yeah.
Because of just where society is.
Yeah.
And you're my observations, I've shared it a ton. You're a very powerful woman.
Yeah. Sharon and I were both very similar in that way.
Yeah, Sharon's very powerful as well. So
where we were used to being that kind of lone wolf when we were in a sticky situation. So it was like we were pulled together, and it was during Christmas time as well. And all three of us were in a dark space.
What year was that?
2020.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was, December 2020. It was actually November when I broke my ankle just before my birthday. And I ended up moving in, and Sharon was like, why don't you come live with us? I was already thinking about leaving Toronto anyways, because I was with this big condo space, which I had planned to be a co-working space.
Yeah, the planning thing again.
So I had this massive condo, and then like 8 months later, lockdowns happen, and I'm in this huge condo alone, like not
right
having
on the
income.
Lake, right on the east end of Toronto. God, it was gorgeous.
It was a gorgeous,
so gorgeous
spot. So I had already thought about leaving and didn't make that happen. And then the ankle broke, and then I was forced in a way to do that. But it ended up being the greatest blessing, the three of us living together, and then Sharon and I both having this experience of being supported.
Totally. Because it's interesting. This conversation is really interesting, because reliving that through this conversation, Sharon it was not easy for her to rely on others to actually help her, because she was a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And when she was in a needy place, that power turned to really difficult energy to be around.
Mm.
And she knew that, you being kind of similar. And so in those circumstances, to actually be that powerful, and two of you and then the three of us being together, and then you seeing the mirror, and it was amazing. Every time we would actually get together and would identify on a path forward, it would go, okay, so who of us agrees this is the path? And there's three of us. So often it was three of us all agreeing this is what we're going to do. But the thing that stands out for me was when two of us, being you and Sharon, thought this path forward was in a certain direction, and I thought it was a different path that would be a better path relative to business, relative to marketing, relative to client, relative to whatever it was, what we're going to eat even. And then when I remember it being a really powerful moment when the two of you would be on the same side, and I was the one who was, no, I wanted to go a different direction. And how quickly, for me, that was a jump point. Mm-hmm. How quickly I had to let go of what my plan was, what I thought I was, what my direction, everything else, and go, okay.
Yeah.
It would happen instantaneously to me, and I saw it happen to you, and I saw it happen to Sharon.
We entered that dynamic, which was so unique because of the lockdowns. Everyone was isolating and bubbling up, or whatever the terms were. So there was literally no distractions. Like, you couldn't go and escape, which would have been my normal pattern. Would have been like, things are getting too tough. I'm going to go.
Let me go think about it. I'm going to escape. Let me think, use my head about it.
Yeah.
And I'll come back with some new logic. There was none of that.
There was none. I was like, okay. So
it's all spontaneous.
And also at that time, I was just so committed, devoted to this concept of unity, which is like level 4 or 5, like understanding we are all one. And what is that really about? It's easy to say, it's easy to understand intellectually, but living it is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And so while we weren't doing any out there business much, I understood that the foundation of any business moving forward was what is the inner world of the individual, and then the team.
Yeah.
And you both had the same understanding as well, which is why I feel we were all pulled together and why it was so powerful. that we were doing this sort of inner restructuring and foundation building by releasing stories, biases, beliefs,
Letting
outdated
go, yeah.
beliefs, like letting go. It was like letting go constantly, and expanding our bandwidth capacity as
Oh
we
my God, I
talk
just
about.
so strongly, like I feel like Sharon's here. This is just
Oh
such a
yeah, for
powerful,
sure.
powerful thing. Letting go of the story that said, no one can hold in my
Yes.
space. There's,
Yeah.
I've never, and Sharon never had met anybody that could hold her other than me. And then you come into the play and it was like, oh my God. And she had shared that with you as well.
Yes.
And then you also had not found any scenario or situation, as I understood it
Yeah.
at the time and up to this date,
Mm-hmm.
where you would actually feel you could be held.
Yeah. No, and it
Me
was,
as well.
yes.
Just to put the three of
Yeah.
us, it was
I
all
think
brand new.
yes.
What the hell? You can hold me while I'm actually screaming or terrified or whatever. You can hold me, ground me.
Yes. And call each other out in a loving way,
Totally.
in a non-judgmental way.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful thing. And why are we going so long and deep in sharing this is, for me, is just to express like the bond that we created, and the foundation of
the power that actually comes
yes.
from that depth of trust.
Yes.
Is massive. Yeah. And I think we're both of the belief that that's where we're actually
yes.
going.
Yeah, moving from, that was for me the journey of letting
as a
go
species.
Of that, so in level 1, 2, 3, we have like we were codependent,
yes,
independent, yeah. interdependent.
Yeah, level 4, 5
we need to go through all that. I mean, yeah. We're all conditioned in codependence. There's not really many models of what interdependent relationships look like, especially in teams. But that independent phase was where codependent, independent was where we met.
Yeah.
And working through all of those dynamics. And
being the lone wolf. I'm more comfortable with the lone wolf than getting other
yeah.
people. And I'm not going to give my power away to somebody else. You don't want to be with me? Okay, I'll go it alone.
Yeah.
And the three of us were doing that independent thing.
Yeah.
For me, it's a marvelous opportunity to reflect on things that we don't talk about that.
No. And then at Sharon's death, the three of us being together felt very
literally her last breath,
interdependent, like being in that sacred space.
Yeah.
And
powerful, powerful, powerful.
Yeah, so powerful. So then not to get too deep on the RV stuff because we have the We Ship channel telling that story, but that was a deeper journey into truly interdependence. And I remember grieving when we were in Costa Rica prior to going out on the RV, the independent me that I really like, that's a special time to be in, spending so much time alone as I had, and then to feel safe in relation again. Yeah. And fully trusting and, fully on that path together. And that brings us to we moved in with each other here. I let go of my apartment when we went on that RV trip, and now like buying a house together. Yeah. And starting Flow Network in a new space, in a new province, in a new arrangement of a house that is on water. Yeah, well, it's very similar. Like I was just reflecting, Sharon was the one who said, I've heard Sarah talk about this RV thing. Yes. Why don't you give that a go? Like, and Sharon said, so if she lives, she'll just come. So we started planning with that. If she lives, if Sharon doesn't live, then you've got something that helps you manage the transition, which is all about letting go. Yeah. So I remember that being the big, whoa, I can't say that I would have actually made that decision by myself. I don't think I could have. Yeah. Without her support, and I don't know that you could have either, because she was really clear with you and clear with me, saying, you two need to do that. I go, what? Yeah. Like, this is crazy. Because we wouldn't have been ready to jump into doing business work. Well, we tried,
and it wasn't.
Well, yeah, we were trying and nothing was flowing, and
Right.
also, yeah, nothing was flowing in that direction. And I could see for you, like after Sharon's death, you need a lot of recovery.
Yeah, still do at this
and
point.
still
Yeah.
do. So, yeah, the letting go period takes the time that it takes, and yeah,
I just saw dragonflies.
I know, I'm seeing the
Are you seeing the dragonflies
all
as well?
over.
Dragonflies are very,
Yeah.
I mean, dragonfly, the metaphor, I think, for transformation.
Yes, the metaphor of the dragonfly in terms of a jump point for
Yeah.
the dragonfly is it lives quite a few years under the water, and it thrives really well under the water.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden
With
one
no
day,
vision to actually get out of the water, because why would you do that?
yeah, because it's got all this food in abundance, and it's like
Yeah.
the top predator or whatever. And then one day it decides to crawl up a stalk of grass
Somehow.
and then
because you can't, they're not able, like you're underwater, you wouldn't be thinking they would be breathing air.
What's air? Like,
Yeah,
if all you've known is water, and then what's
it
this
like
air
to
thing about?
navigate air?
So as it crawls up the stalk of grass, the water that's left in it is what unfurls the wings.
So cool.
So that it can fly. And for me, it's like the water of our emotion, like
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to let go of emotion, which comes through tears, water, which is our thing, our healing that allows our wings for freedom to come out. And we've had a lot of tears over the years.
Oh my gosh, we still have. Like,
every day.
It's so funny. Even, it was just more recent. Even we were in Europe, and they're filming there, and there I am crying again. I was going to say bawling, which has a bit of energy to it.
Tim bawling, I don't do it all the time, obviously, but I think in the
it's letting go.
Yeah, in the storytelling aspect of all of this is to show all the sides of this journey, and a lot of what the We Ship has been up to this point has been the letting go part. And once we make this jump over to Vancouver Island, which we're driving across Canada again
in
into
the car
our new
with
beginning.
2 dogs.
Yes.
Yeah. So sorry.
I just want to finish that point. Is like we're now entering. It feels like the true new beginning.
Yes.
We're still doing a lot of letting go in this move and being back here and everything, but that will signify the new beginning.
Yes.
And we will be bringing you along and documenting and creating both for the We Ship, but also for the podcast. But the next episodes that are going to be coming out are going to go taking you back in time, you, the listener, back in time, to go on the journey with us to Italy and on that pilgrimage to finding our float home. And then we'll catch up with you in Vancouver Island on our float home for the episode after that, and just talking about our journey across Canada and being there and starting our new beginning. But it felt important to have a couple of episodes at least here on this side in Ontario prior to.
Well, for me, this has just been a howl, because I mean, when's the last time with any linear progression to a conversation we've actually reflected on all the stuff that happened, all the letting go that happened up till this point in time? I mean, it's just that's just a real big euphoric release.
And I think it's like realistic to say, the letting go is not just something you do in a workshop weekend. It's like a year of progress. And in human design and other systems as well, they talk about you need 7 years to let go of what they call the not self. The not self being the programmed version of us that's homogenized and conditioned to fit into a structure that actually doesn't really support who you really are, like your true self, your aligned self, your authentic self. And we've been showing our journey, and if you go back to some of those flow show episodes, it's a little bit painful to watch.
Which is a whole other show.
Of our early days together, but worth keeping out there just to show, like, this is real life.
This is how it works.
This is the journey
it's not always pretty.
Yeah, even though we've talked about the 5 levels, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it presents linearly. It is nonlinear, it's completely nonlinear, and
yeah, it is.
And I'm excited to continue this podcast and share these models that we've been co-creating together and massaging. And
it's been my life's work.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really understand why. It was something that was so important to me, but now I'm starting to get a better understanding as to why.
Yeah.
It is because it wasn't as relevant to the old Tim as it is to these new life. Dragonfly.
The dragonfly dream.
The dragonfly dream.
The dragonfly dream to
2027 and forward.
The gene keys again, and your gene key 55, which is the whole energy of this future.
Yeah, my gene key. Yeah.
Which is freedom, which is about stepping into our personal freedom and making the jump point to our timeline of our dreams, basically.
Yeah, what a great way of finishing this podcast.
Yeah, great way of finishing it off. Any final shares?
No, I'm accepting. I think this was just fun for me. We tried a different format, and it just really kind of
felt good just looking at each other and not the camera.
Yeah, it did. Odd, yeah.
So you can let us know as the viewer, because we're just making this up as we go, and really the podcast, like talking to a boomer, which is Tim, and
podcast,
is like, what is it the same thing we've always done? Like, kinda, but the point is that we're getting to reach a new platform, which is Spotify and the whole podcast ethos.
Yeah, and he says, "What?" And I go, "Yeah, okay, fine, great. So let's just start talking. When you start talking, I'll actually start.
Just do the same thing. Just turn the camera on.
I'll just make it up as I go.
Yeah,
that's the part I love.
Yeah, that's some of the things we've learned working together over these years is like, we're not going to plan anything. We're not going to write a script.
No, I do so terrible at that.
We're not going to. Yeah, I remember the first year we were together, and we're like, we should do a documentary. Let's do a documentary about this. Yeah. We weren't calling it we might have even been calling it a jump point in evolution at that time. Whatever we were calling it, we're like, let's do a documentary. And so we sat down. I was going to do a storyboard like I learned in my television broadcasting school. And we sat down, we're like, no, this isn't going to work. Let's just...
Well, we tried pretty hard.
We did try pretty hard.
It was so obvious. For me, it would never work.
And every time we'd come together in a meeting, I think we were on the same page. And then we would totally not be on the same page after one night's sleep. And I'm like, oh gosh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought we were going this way. And you'd be like, I thought we were going that way.
Yeah. No, it's such a... I mean, now it's almost a miracle to recognize I'm not wired...
Yeah.
To plan and stick with the plan. I'm literally not wired, and I've been in that world my whole life trying to fit in, and so this is so liberating to just riff spontaneously. This is what we're about.
Which is what I was going to say. What we did. So we ended up doing a documentary, but not in the traditional way, where we just were like, okay, we called it the big play.
We had a bunch of them like that. I think those are so cool.
Those are cool. So, I mean, you want to see our younger selves on Flow Network. We have the big game, and then it turned into there's 3 parts to that series, and the big play.
Big pivot, was that it?
And then there was, I think we scratched the big pivot because Tim had an agenda on that one, and I
went into planning mode.
Yeah, you went into planning mode on that one. And then there's the real wealth transfer. So that kind of all is documenting leading up to the first product, which was the hero's journey that we created.
Yeah.
Long after, while I was living with you guys with a broken ankle.
Yeah.
Really living that
Joseph
hero's
Campbell,
journey.
who is the guy who made famous the hero's journey, was one of Sharon's idols.
Idols. Okay, well, this has been cool. So thanks for listening, and go check out flownetwork.ca if you want to engage with us.
Thanks for joining us.
The We Ship on YouTube. We're excited to be sharing the models we've been working on, and we're going to pick up in Rome. Actually, we're going to pick up in Naples. We didn't film anything in Rome because we were too jet lagged.
Oh yeah, we just stared out the window.
We just jumped in front of the Colosseum to have the cool effect for the Jump Point podcast. But yeah, we're gonna pick up in Naples, and you're gonna journey with us through Italy, where we were really immersing ourselves in the energy of suppression, but also
really,
Renaissance.
where the Renaissance really took place.
Yes.
But and the Renaissance took place at that time, way back when, whenever year that was, as a function of suppression.
Yes.
And here we are, and it's very tangible in
Yes.
Italy and Europe for the most part.
This is
how
the next
suppressed,
Renaissance coming.
Big
We
lid.
believe we've been talking about this rise of the creative class since we met as well, feeling into this.
And we're here. We're globally. That's what's going on.
That's what's going on. So we're looking forward to continue sharing, and we hope you like the next few episodes of our journey back through finding our home on Vancouver Island. Bye for now.
Bye for now.